It is officially October, which means one thing. Regular season hockey is back, and we are so excited for the actual start of the 24-25 season in just 10 days. So on this episode, we get to talk about the three potential breakout players that might be flying under the radar for the Carolina Hurricanes this season. That and more on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I also do a weekly column with the Chicago Wolves called Wolves a Weekly, which will be starting here very, very soon. I'm also the co-host of the Surge Casualty Weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my dudes here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun show for you guys today as we talk about the three under-the-radar players that I think could have some breakout seasons for the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm going to start with Jack Drury and why I think after a career year for him last season, I think he can step it up to another year after getting his contract extension over the summer. Also, newcomer Sean Walker, as he did have a good year last year for his time in Philadelphia and Colorado, but I think in Carolina's system now and being with Shane Gostisbehere, I think he could take his game to another level. And a surprising one, which I think will take a lot of people by surprise, is Jordan Martinook. While he has had back-to-back 30-point seasons, I think getting an extension in how long it is might give him some breathing room to not have to worry so much about where he's going to be going, but just focusing on the hockey, and I think where he can have a huge season for himself as well. But before we jump into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, like I said, a lot of people are going to be like, for Jack Drury, it kind of makes sense why he would probably be one of those guys under the radar who I think could have a career season. Now, if you look at some of the other guys on the roster, Seth Jarvis has a breakout year last year. It's more of a continuation of what he can do. You know, could Jack Roslovic be one of those guys? Yeah, possibly. There's a good chance that Jack Roslovic could do something within the system. We talk about just Barry Cook and a lot on the podcast and in the articles and stuff like that I do with the Hockey Writers. And we were kind of talking about him stepping up this year for the Hurricanes on a more recent episode. But I think for someone like Jack, I think this is kind of a season for him where it's you're here for another 2 seasons. You don't got to worry about contract stuff. And you had a great year last year. Now let's see you build off of it and, take it to another level. Because last year with the Carolina Hurricanes, he had a really great year overall, registering 27 points and actually established new career highs in games played with 74, 8 goals, 19 assists, 27 points. He also had 2 power play goals and 7 power play points. And he actually also ranked second on the team in face-off win percentage last year with a minimum of 10 draws. He had 55.3%. So, very underrated in terms of the being able to take the face-offs and the way he did it too. We were talking about 55%. That's pretty high in being second on the team. You'll take that for your fourth line center and someone who I believe that overall I think he's really floated under the radar a lot. And looking at how his career has been, he's been good wherever he's played at. He played really great at Harvard, went over to the SHL, played for Faxio. He did really good over there with the Lakers. Came over to the Chicago Wolves, and you talk about the championship season he had with them, and you really can't overlook how good of a Calder Cup run that Jack Drury had with the Chicago Wolves back in the 21-22 season. It's something where it's like you will take that out of a guy who had 20 goals, 52 points in 68 games, and had a playoff run to help them go reach the Calder Cup. And then you look at his overall career with the Hurricanes, 2 seasons ago back in 22-23, played 38 games, 8 points in that stretch. But then last year, it's probably the most he's ever played for the team. 74 games, like I said, got 27 points. Did miss some time due to some injury, but if you really think about it, if you get, and I've been saying this for a while, if you give Jack Drury proper ice time and give him a full season of what he can do, I think he can really show how good of a hockey player he is. And like I said, he's done it wherever he's been. SHL, NCAA, AHL. Even last year with the Hurricanes for 74 games at least, you can't overlook the production that he had. Like I said, 8 goals, 27 points in 74 games. If he didn't have a couple goals taken off the board and just had a couple extra puck bounces go his way, he easily could have had 10 to 15 goals last year and probably could have had a few more assists. And of course, that's talking about with his line mates of like Steph Nason moving up and down the lineup. Got Jesper Kotkaniemi at some points of the year as well. Brendan Lemieux. So it's like he didn't really have consistent line mates this last season. It still did pretty good overall. In terms of even strength ice time, he only played about 10 minutes. Like he played over 10 and a half minutes, was slightly under 11 minutes even. But overall, I mean, you're playing a little bit under 11 minutes, still being able to put the points up that you are, 0.36 points per game. So you'll take that for a guy who's, not giving a whole lot of time, but I think could be someone that the Hurricanes could lean on more as the season goes along. Because you look at the playoffs, he did have 5 points in the 11 games of the Hurricanes, and he was the second-line center after playing all last year on the fourth line. So he comes in, does his thing on the second-line center, does pretty good overall in the playoffs. And if you look at how his, his advanced stats were last year for the Hurricanes, his goal for percentage was 64.20, which you'll gladly take out of your fourth-line guys. And even his Corsi for percentage, which is usually how long your team has the puck for when you're on the ice and stuff like that. So it's about a huge possession stat. He had a 61% when he's on the ice. So yeah, while you're playing less than 11 minutes a game, you're still getting 61% of your Corsi for percentage. That is a number any team will take for a fourth line center. And I think that's why Jack Drury, that's why he got his 2-year, $3.5 million extension, which pays him out $1.73 million over the next couple of years. And I think it shows a good faith of them believing in a guy who they took 42nd overall back at the 2018 draft. So, and the thing is, he will still be a restricted free agent at the end of his contract at age 26 at the end of the 25-26 season. And to even further prove why the Hurricanes believe in Jack Drury, and I think that he could have a potential breakout year because he had one last year. He kind of set a lot of career highs, but I think he can have even a bigger season for the Carolina Hurricanes. And Eric Tulsky even saw that too, the general manager of the team. Jack took tremendous steps last season to solidify himself as a key part of our forward group. He's an extremely hard worker at both sides of the ice who can be relied upon in all situations, and we're excited to watch his continued growth in Carolina. So just like Seth Jarvis was a couple seasons ago, Jack kind of took last year as he's going to keep proving himself why he's a good two-way forward, someone that the Hurricanes can really rely on. That's after he asked for a trade request 2 seasons ago. And now he's kind of solidified himself to a point where the Hurricanes really can't take him out of a lineup, and that he's slowly starting to put himself into situations of could he potentially move up in the lineup as a second-line center? Does he become a third-line center? It all just really depends on how the Carolina Hurricanes want to use him. But, it's also, too, for the fact that they could use him on the power play, see him kind of used on the second power play unit a little bit here in camp. Could you see him possibly do it in the regular season? Who knows? But I think if you look at a season like Jack Drury, you give him if you give him 80 games, 82 games, give him consistent line mates, and we've seen it with, either Eric Robinson or Tyson Jost on the one side, then Brendan Lemieux on the other side. If you give him consistent line mates, that'll help him, play really well this year. I think that you could see a season where you're looking at more than just 8 goals and 19 assists. You're looking at probably 12 to 15 goals, 25 assists. Let's say 10 goals, 25 assists. You're looking at 35 points. That is a step up. It's like, okay, well, that's 8 points. Is that really a breakout? Well, you're talking about a guy who's on the fourth line a lot, and not, he's out with guys like Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, Andrei Svechnikov, and stuff like that. You'll take big jumps in numbers that you can see out. Now, would I love to see him get 10 extra points and go up to 37? Yeah, you would love to see that for a guy like Jack Drury, be able to go, okay, here's 8, here's 19. Let's just see how far we can bump that up. Like I said, if he goes to 15 goals, that's already 15 of your 35. Then you just got to get 20 assists. then there you go. Then there's your 35 right there. Or if you go a little bit more just to get to the 37, then you'll take that as well. So it just all really depends on how you want to play it out. But I think with Jack Drury, he's someone that I can really see having a breakout season for the Carolina Hurricanes just because of he's done it everywhere else. It's just he's got to get the proper ice time to where he's give him 12, 13, 14 minutes a game. Then I can think you can kind of show where he is as a player. 13 minutes would be a lot better than what he's gotten just under 11. Give him 13 minutes with the proper line mates throughout the season. And I know Jackson Blake's been playing really well too so far in the preseason and training camp. Let's say you throw Jackson Blake on that fourth line with Jack Drury, and let's say it's Brendan Lemieux or Eric Robinson. That's a good sneaky fourth line that if you get guys like Blake and Drury at least being part of that lineup, you could see some production out of those guys. And maybe you could see some big numbers out of Jack Drury. But I believe he's one of those guys that he's going to be very sneaky this year who could actually have a breakout season. Now, it could be 8 to 10 points, and would you consider that a breakout? I think you kind of could for a guy who's still pretty young, all things considered. So it's just, he's 24 years old, so why not? I think he has a proper shot of doing something really great for the Hurricanes this year. So we are going to move on to the blue line and a newcomer for the Carolina Hurricanes and Sean Walker, why I think he's going to have a huge season for them. So make sure to stick around as we'll talk about that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Where can you do that? Well, you can do that at FanDuel.com. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So I can say at the end of segment 1, we're going to be talking about the new Blue Line addition and Sean Walker, and why I think he can have a breakout season with the Carolina Hurricanes after splitting last season with the Philadelphia Flyers and the Colorado Avalanche. So he played with the Flyers last year for 63 games. He had 6 goals and 22 points with a .35 points per game. And with the Colorado Avalanche, he played in 18 games with them, had 4 goals and 7 points with a .39 points per game. So if you look at the season he had overall, you'll take, 10 goals and 29 points, which for him was, new career highs, all things considered. And if you look at his goal for percentage with Philadelphia, it was a 55.2, and then his Corsi for was 52.6. And that's averaging just a tad under 16 minutes per game. He had 15.88 even strength total time on ice per game. So that's according to Puckpedia. So just slightly under 60 minutes per game with the Flyers. So really good overall for a guy who played a lot of top 4 defensive minutes for them. And then you look at the Colorado Avalanche. In the 18 games, he was a .39, but his goal for percentage was 55 even. Then his Corsi for percentage was 54.20. So his Corsi for percentage actually went up, so a lot more extra possession time for Sean Walker. He went to Colorado, and just the fact that he scored 4 goals in 18 games compared to his 6 and 63 with Philadelphia, he was almost ready to beat his current pace that he had with Colorado. And just the overall fact that his points per game were like .04 higher really gets to show you how good Sean Walker is, and the fact that that's why the Hurricanes took a shot on giving a 5-year contract with $3.6 million per season, which is $18 million that they'll pay him out over the next 5 years. It will make him an unrestricted free agent at the end of the 28-29 season at age 34. Now, the one thing I really like about Sean Walker already is the fact he's already gelled with the Hurricanes right out of camp. You can see with how he's doing with Shane Gostisbehere. And even, too, you look at his preseason debut game where they beat the Florida Panthers 8-2 at Lenovo Center back on last Friday. And yes, you could say, okay, well, it's the Panthers, like younger prospects. You kind of should beat them the way you should have. But it's really tough for guys to come into a new system and do really well out of the gates already. And we can already see that with Sean Walker. Like I said, he had 3 points that game, which unofficially led the Hurricanes in that game, with a goal and 2 assists. So talk about a really good debut game in front of hometown fans if you're Sean Walker. And you ask a lot of people around the organization, like everyone's really excited about this guy and someone who really could, be that step up the Hurricanes really need. Because you look at the loss of Brady Shea and Brett Pesce, you got Sean Walker coming your Brett Pesce replacement, and you're already seeing that paying dividends for the fact that, like I said, you got 3 points in your debut game, and you can already tell just from like talking to the guys. And just, especially like Sean Walker, and just being able to get his thoughts on how he's working in the system, and just the fact that, with Shane Gossesbear even said he really likes how he's playing with Walker, and the fact that it's great. He's a righty, I'm a lefty. We feel like we're kind of on the same player in the sense that we're pretty offensive and we can skate pretty well. I think Walks is a heck of a player. It'll be a pleasure to play with him. I think we'll use each other very wisely. And that's the thing with Sean Walker, is the fact that you think of him as more of a defensive guy, but with speed and transition, he does have some offensive side to his game, and that's something that we'll talk about here in a second, of why his offensive side could really thrive in a system like the Carolina Hurricanes, because he's even said he wants to be better about getting his offensive game a little bit higher. And clearly you're already seeing that already, and I think that's why Ghost and Walker together, of course, as fans call it, Ghost Walker, I think they're going to be a very underrated defensive pairing this year. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people of how good these guys are going to be. Now, through training camp, you've seen them kind of be part of the third pairing, but in the preseason game against Florida, they were actually the second pair. So, really how Rod does it. He's guys are going to get minutes and stuff like that regardless. So I think you can see a case where it doesn't really matter where he puts, Ghost and Walker on, if it's second or third, he's going to use them regardless. So I think if just by that standard alone, I think you already know they're going to have a great season overall. And, Walker even echoed the sentiments of what Gossesbear said. We've been paired together these last couple of days. Of course, is really early on in camp. So just working through it and having the trust together and just buying into the same game plan is to really help us be successful. I think bringing in Shane and I, that they just want us to play our games. They don't want us to change our identity, just be the players we can be out there. Stick to our strong assets and buy into the game plan. I think we'll be successful. And like I said, they've already been buying into the system perfectly, especially Sean Walker, when, he even said, being able to transition to a new team in a new system, and the fact that, it's kind of giving a chance to play into what he's been really stressing on for a long time. And he said, I think all the things we're working on right now fits my style of play. Rod's been talking about fast transitioning, putting the stress on them and taking it off us. And that's been something I've been trying to put into my game throughout my career. I think I'll just fit into the system really well, so it's been really good so far. So that is a really good promising for the fact that, you always hear, oh, how's he going to fit in the system? It takes defensemen longer to get into that. And from the sounds of it, it already gives you the sense that Sean Walker's fitting really well into the system, and it does help too. That is defensive partner in Shane Gossesbear. It's already been here and done that. He's, played with the Hurricanes, 2 seasons ago when he got traded over from the Arizona Coyotes. Played really well. Of course, he's going to be here for he's going to be here for 3 seasons. So you probably got Walker and Ghost together for the next 3 years. So that's kind of been a beneficial aspect for Sean Walker's game, to why I think that you'll see him have a breakout season after the season he just had in Philadelphia and Colorado, where, you did have 10 goals and 29 points. But for me, it's more of like, could we get to 40? It's a possibility. I mean, he played over 16 minutes with Colorado last year and had 4 goals and 7 points in 18 games. Like I said, goal total wise, he was already ready to tie his total that he had in Philadelphia. So if you give him a chance, let's go to 35. Yes, it's not a huge jump from 29 to 35, but it's a possibility you can get 35 to 40 points out of Sean Walker. If you get 40 points out of him, that's great. You're talking 10 goals, 30 assists. Because last year he had 19. Is that in the realm of possibility within a system like the Hurricanes, where you're really more worried about transitioning and putting the stress on the other team? Because we saw what he did. Like I said, you get 3 points in your debut, that's a good sign. And I don't really care if it's preseason. That gives you the confidence, like, okay, this guy is figuring out the system already, and that's a good sign to have. So I wouldn't be surprised if you get 35 points out of him, and let's say it's 10 goals and 25 assists. Nothing wrong with that. You'll absolutely take that. for a guy like Sean Walker. If he gets to 40, nothing wrong with 10 goals, 30 assists. It could be, let's say, 12 goals and, 28 assists. There's so many ways you can go down the avenue of how Sean Walker is going to be. But I think overall, Walker's going to have a really great season with the Carolina Hurricanes. And it seems like he's fitting into a defensive system and a game where he's going to thrive really well, especially with the fact that like I said, your line partner Shane Gostisbehere, your defensive coach is Tim Gleason, and your head coach is Rod Brendamore, and you're fitting into a system that's going to fit perfectly well to how you want to play hockey. Yeah, I think there's a huge season coming for Sean Walker, so we definitely got to keep an eye on that. So we got one more guy to talk about, and he has been a Carolina Hurricane for a long time, since 2018-19. Has had back-to-back 30-point seasons, but I think Jordan Martin could have another huge year for the Carolina Hurricane. So stick around as I'll talk about that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. All right, guys, we got to talk about Gametime. And Gametime is a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event even easier. Gametime Picks also filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The one good thing I like about them is the fact, like I said, with your Gametime Picks, it's even easier to find tickets to save more, not just sports, but also concerts, comedy theaters, and so much more. And also, their all-in pricing feature is a really good one to have. So make sure you have to turn on this feature by toggling it. And when you do, you can see the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So you know what you're going to pay for before you even have to go buy the tickets themselves. And now, the feature I really love about the Gametime app is their panoramic view seat finder. And with that, you get a perfect view of your seat in the app before you buy. So you don't have to worry about obstructive views or awkward angles and stuff like that. You know what you're going to be seeing from your seat before you even buy, because in the end, really, you just want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, and you can do that with Gametime. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONAHL. That's LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Well, it's game time. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So the end of segment 2, I talked about how we're going to talk about Jordan Martin and how the veteran is staying a lot longer with the Carolina Hurricanes after being here since the 2018-19 season. He just signed a 3-year contract extension, which was it comes out to $3 million officially on the books, but it's $9.15 million with a cap of 3.05, but technically it was a 3x3, all things considered. And they'll take him to the end of the 26-27 season, where he'll be an unrestricted free agent at the age of 34. Now, Martin last season with the Carolina Hurricanes had 14 goals, 18 assists for 32 points with a .39 points per game player. His goals for percentage was 47.10, so you kind of would love to see it being a little bit closer to 50. He did average on even strength 12.98 minutes per game, so it was just super, super close to 13 minutes even. But his Corsi for percentage, 61.80, so that really goes to show how good Jordan Martin has been. And the fact that, while the goals for percentage isn't up there, his Corsi for is. If you look at even the last couple of seasons, his goal for percentage 2 seasons ago was 53.7, so you'll really take that. And his Corsi for was 60.8. And then back in the 21-22 season, how about a Corsi for percentage of 58.8? So for the last 3 seasons, it's just his Corsi for possession numbers have just been getting higher and higher. So you go from like 58 to 60, 60 to 61, and it's all .80 at the back end. So over the last few years, you're seeing him slowly just take every year bumping up in terms of his Corsi for percentage. Now, points-wise, he hasn't really been with someone who's been putting up a lot of points for the Carolina Hurricanes. Of course, he had 15 goals and 25 points back in the 18-19 season, then 13, 15 over those few seasons. But in the last 2 years, ever being with Jordan Staal, 13 goals, 34 points in 82 games 2 seasons ago. And then this past year, 14 goals, 18 assists for 32 points in 82 games. And he's played in all 82 games back-to-back seasons for the Carolina Hurricanes. Over 1,000 minutes of total on-ice production. And I think for Jordan Martin, now you don't have to worry about contracts. You're here for another 3 years. You could possibly maybe retire as a Carolina Hurricane because you'll be, ending that contract at 34, or you can play maybe on a 1 or 2, maybe another 1 or 2 year deal at the possible end of it. I think so. But you look at someone of the Carolina Hurricanes value really well, and the fact that he's been here for so long that he's got 132 points in 394 games with the team. And of course, that's after back-to-back 30-point seasons. And Eric Tulsky says of how much he's valued with this team, and that, Jordan is the heart and soul of our team, and he has played a pivotal role in changing the culture here over his 6 years as a Hurricane. He's such a reliable presence for us both on and off the ice. We are thrilled to keep him in Raleigh for years to come. And I think that he could have another huge season for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, would you consider him as a possible breakout player? I could see the argument on both sides of it, but I think with how he's played over the last couple of years, he's played with Jordan Staal a lot. Unfortunately, they're not going to have Jesper Foss this year. So it'll be curious to see who their right wing counterpart's going to be. Now, they've had William Carey over there, and it seems like he's been fitting in really well with the Jordans. So you could be looking at the possibility of Carrier and the Jordans together as your third line, which is really good if you really think about just of how good of an analytical player that William Carrier is, and just what Jordan Martinook and Jordan Staal can bring on their type of gameplay as well. Where, yeah, maybe the goals and points are going to be there, but just the physicality and being able to shut down the other team's best players, while also having some sneaky scoring, does build well. And I think that's something Jordan Martinook can really play on for the Hurricanes this upcoming season, because like I said, he doesn't have to worry about contract stuff. He's here for the next 3 seasons. He's back with Jordan Staal again. He could potentially have a good year with William Carey on the right side, but he's gonna be on the penalty kill and all that stuff. And like you said, he had 15 goals back in the 18-19 season when he first came over to the Canes, and then had 13 and 14 the last 2 seasons. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to get 17 goals at least for the Hurricanes, which would give him an extra 3. And let's say he gets a few more assists. I can see him getting to a 40-point season. Now, if you get 40 points, it's only an 8-point bump. But if you really consider how, for a guy like Jordan Martinook, I can see where it's like, okay, well, it's 8 points. Does that really consider a breakout? And it's like, well, for you looking at a player who isn't really known to put up a whole bunch of points, just be able to get a career out of a guy in terms of just being able to see his stats go up some, you'll take that if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, especially if you're looking at a shutdown third line guy like Jordan Martinook. So if you give him 17 goals and 23 assists, there's your 40 points. That's a good 8-point bump. You're going up, 5 additional assists, 3 additional goals. So yeah, I definitely think, it just depends on how you look at the definition of breakout. Yeah, because you have a guy who's going from let's say it's Seth Jarvis going from 40 to 67. Yeah, that's a huge breakout season. Yeah, you'll take that. And that's for someone who you would hope to have a season like that when you're the 13th overall pick. But if you're like Jack Drury, 4th line guy, Jordan Martinook, 3rd line guy, you can still look at a breakout season and say, hey, this guy had a lot more. He had a career high in goals, career high in assists, career high in points. To me, that's considered a breakout guy. And I think that's someone who Jordan Martinook can be. So it just really depends on how you want to view breakouts in certain aspects of is it 30 points or, for a guy who's supposed to be in the top 6, or is it, hey, this guy had a career year when he saw a bump up in all his goal totals and points and stuff like that. So yeah, I think you could consider Jordan Martinook a breakout candidate for the Hurricanes this year and someone who could actually do something. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Jack Drury, Sean Walker, and Jordan Martinook would be good under the radar breakout players that you wouldn't really consider for the Hurricanes? Because, all eyes are going to be on Aho and Jarvis, what Kakaniemi can do this year, Andrei Svechnikov, Martin Necas. But I think, you can't really overlook the other guys as well who could have really huge seasons for the Hurricanes. Maybe on paper people aren't thinking about, and that may be something that could really work out for the team overall for the upcoming 24-25 season. But that will wrap up this episode of Locked On Hurricanes. Let me know in the comments what you think about Jack Drury, Sean Walker, and Jordan Martinook being as breakout candidates, and do you think those guys could have really huge seasons for the Carolina Hurricanes? If you want to keep up with everything going on with me covering the Carolina Hurricanes, you can follow me on One True Zach. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. There's a link tree in my bio where you can check out all my articles at the Hockey Writers, or just go to the hockeywriters.com. You can find all my articles over there under our Carolina Hurricanes section. There's also a link to listen to my other podcast, The Surgecast, and it's on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Just look up The Surgecast. For this podcast, like I said, there are links to where you can watch and listen to the show, but if you want to just search for it on all podcast platforms, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Same thing on the YouTube side. And on the YouTube side, make sure to hit subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up button. Let me know that you like the show as well. And share the podcast, because we are almost to 990 subscribers. We are on the road to 1,000, because if we hit 1,000, I'm going to do something special for you guys, because we want to make other Caniacs become everydayers just like you. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Tuesday episode of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoys their Tuesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.